Hello everybody, this is Miss Murphy and I am going on to the next steps of your forms and values practice. So I'm just going to help you to kind of start out so you understand how you are going to apply value to all of your forms. So I'm going to start out with the cone. So what you'll need is your drawing that we started already. And also I suggested in your assignment page that you have a tissue or you have a Q-tip. I just grabbed a piece of a napkin. So I just literally tore up a little piece, and then what I do is I twist it a little bit so that I can blend, and this is like my blending tool. So in case I'm creating any shadows or shading, which we are doing in here, I'm going to use my blending tool, which usually an artist uses what's known as a blending stick. So this works pretty much the same way. And if you have a Q-tip, even better, just using the end of a Q-tip for your blending. So do whatever you can find, use whatever you can find. And if not, use your finger. So as we are getting into this unit here, we are starting with observing forms, drawing forms, and also making them look like three-dimensional forms. So we've created the drawings already, and now we really need to make them look three-dimensional. So we're going to add and apply some value, meaning some light to dark shades throughout. And one thing you had to already do was create a value scale. I asked you to create a value scale of 6 values from light to dark, and this is your reference for when you're applying value onto your forms. So I'm going to begin with my cone. And one thing I also mentioned in your directions was think about your light source. So on each one, if you want to draw a little arrow like so, and that is going to tell you exactly where your light is coming from. Now you can go in any direction you want. I just like to go in one angle on my paper, and that actually just guides me throughout, so I know exactly where my light is coming from. So I'm going to start with the cone, and I'm going to start with the darker edge. So I know that my light is coming in from this side. I actually have a real light source happening here. So I like to start out, and also I want to say that the way you hold your pencil is really helpful to think about. It's something that you want to consider, because if I hold it at a point, I don't get as much surface covered versus if I hold it at an angle like I'm doing. And I find that I also get a little bit better with my gradation, meaning my transition from dark to light. So I know that my light is hitting that side. I'm going to start with my darker side, my darker value, and then I'm going to gradually, sometimes what I do is I just go over here, but I'm not going to actually put some value in every section, but I want to look and make sure that I'm getting a medium, and then a medium value, a medium gray, and then it's getting lighter. I do not need to go all the way over to the other side because I'm going to leave that as a highlight so you can see what I'm doing. And sometimes even in the darker areas, I will take my pencil in another direction. Consider that your light is coming from the top. So I know this corner here is going to be darker. I didn't mean to go over there, but it's okay to, make mistakes. You have an eraser. By the way, you should have a pencil that has a good eraser. I definitely recommend using a regular number 2 pencil versus a mechanical pencil, because it's a little bit more effective and easier to work with when you're creating value on a larger surface. And I know this doesn't seem that big, but it's actually a pretty large amount of shading that I'm doing. So I'm going over here, and I know that this corner, so sometimes I even draw a very, very light kind of guideline for myself. And I'm just gradually bringing it over. So once I start seeing my lighter value in there is when I start really lifting my pencil. So pencil pressure is another aspect of creating light and dark value. Reducing the pressure on your pencil is another strategy for making it get lighter gradually, right? And then also, like I said earlier, I go in different directions with my pencil to get my darker values. Something else I like to do is take my pencil along the darker edges. I'm not going to outline it all in dark, just the edges that I see that are really, really, really dark, like so. So this side, I know that you don't want to outline the entire form because that's going to make it look really flat. Something else you can do is just take your eraser and just lightly erase the very brightest side very, very subtly. And then it gives what's called an implied line on that side. You can still see the surface. You can still see a little suggestion of the line. So it's like a suggested line rather than an actual line. So I just erase a little bit. That already gives me a little more dimension. Sometimes I go around the edge a little bit and do that in some corners. And you can see that I don't have a line between light and dark, or dark and light, but it looks gradual. But something that I need to do is actually add some blending to this because that's going to help this really look like one three-dimensional form. And that's really helping that out as well. So you can see that now when I look at it, I'm also gonna, take some time. I might use my finger a little bit here too. I'm gonna take some time to evaluate whether or not it looks as three-dimensional as I want it to be. So something else that you may want to include and also think about is a shadow. So if I have light coming from this side, I know I'm gonna have a shadow over here. And you want to think about what that shadow is going, where that shadow would go. So I know that it probably would go in this direction. And, it's just like a suggested shadow here, which already adds a little more dimension, gives it a three-dimensional quality that I like to see. And I'm going in different directions. I'm also noticing that I don't really have enough of my darker value, so I'm taking my time to go back in, and I want to make sure that it doesn't look flat. So you want to if you need to, remember, you can go back in and you can erase any, if you went over too far, if you think you need to highlight it a little bit. If you want to make this a little more dramatic, you can actually shade in a little more, so you can really see a highlight there, but you do not want to make it a line in between the light and the dark. This should really look like your value scale, except on the form that you drew. And remember that you want to go back in. If you have outlined everything, you'll notice that this outline is much darker on this side than this. And I actually erased some of the lines on this side to create what is known as an implied line. You can still see the form even though I did that. And I'm going to really go back in here and see if I can pull this darker value out a little bit more. So this is really how you want to work with each of your forms. I'm going to do another video showing the next forms, but this is just to get you started as far as planning your light source and getting started with the first form. And I hope that helps. Thank you.